Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join this admin by request demo. As part of the demo, I'm going to take you through the end user experience first, and then I'll walk you through the portal so we can review how configuration and settings work. So we support Windows, Mac, and Linux. As far as deployment is concerned, you need to push out a lightweight client to your endpoints, and then you're up and running. So there's no on-prem tech. There's no additional startup fees that are associated with the software. And the way that the software works is once it's installed on an endpoint, the next time that somebody logs on, we're going to check if they're in the local admin group. And if they are, we will revoke their privileges on the fly unless they fall into one of three scenarios. We don't touch the root account. We don't revoke any groups on admin privileges that have, or groups on Active Directory that have admin privileges. And you also have the ability to exclude accounts in the portal, which I'll touch on once we get to that side of the demo. So users have three ways to get elevation. The first is a single file elevation. So this is a request to elevate a specific file. And if we try and run something that requires privileges, we're going to get prompted with our admin by request box. And I have it set for these single file elevation requests that I require my user to give me a reason for why they're doing this. But after that, I don't require them to wait for an approval from my team. You can turn that approval requirement on or off, and I'll show you that workflow in a minute here. But since my user does not have to wait for an approval, after they hit OK, it takes them straight into a code of conduct, which is fully customizable. And then Adobe will start installing. So anything that spawns from this process, we're going to cover. And then anything outside of that, the user is not able to elevate. And as soon as this is terminated or completed, we're going to go ahead and upload that audit log to your portal. All right. So I'll get out of this real quick. So the second scenario for elevation is an admin session. This is actually going to be a period of time that the user is going to have admin privileges on this machine. And my user can request an admin session by double-clicking our desktop icon. And then we'll get that request box. And for these admin session requests, I do require that my user waits for an approval. So after they fill out this form and hit OK, they get a pop-up saying your request has been sent. You can view the requests in the portal here under the Request tab. So there's the reason I gave. I'll approve this. We do send out an email letting you know that there's a request that needs to be handled. We also have a free mobile app. So if you use that, you get a push notification. You can handle the request from there. We have a Microsoft Teams and a Slack integration. So if you set those up, you can route those requests out to a Teams or Slack channel. And we also have options to tie in with your ticketing system, which I will touch on once we get into the portal side of the demo. So I got my notification that I was approved. I'll hit yes to start my session. And now I have 30 minutes. I have admin privileges on this machine. That amount of time is adjustable in the portal, up or down. And we also have a blocked applications feature. So even while my user has privileges for this period of time, I decided I do not want them to be able to elevate command. So I blocked it in the portal. And if they try and run as admin, they're going to get an access denied. We also give you pin coding. This is so that you can unblock a blocked task if you need to for any reason. It's just a challenge response system, and you can generate that pin code in the portal or in the mobile app. So the last scenario for elevation is your pre-approved applications. These are applications that you want users to be able to go ahead and elevate without having to enter any sort of workflow. There's a lot of flexibility with how you can configure these, which I'll touch on once we get into the portal side of the demo. But Just as an example, I have Notepad pre-approved to run Force Elevated. So we force it to elevate for our users anytime they run it. This specific configuration is really helpful for any legacy applications that don't run right without elevation. But we'll double click, we'll get a yes or no, and then Notepad will run elevated. So that's a run through of the end user experience. Now we can move into the portal. So the first thing I'll show you in the portal is setting up your portal users. This is anyone that you want to have access to the portal. You can have as many as you like. It does not affect your pricing in any way. And we can serve you credentials, but we'd recommend you use your own SSO system. We support Okta, Azure, ADFS, and SAML 2.0 SSO systems. So we configure settings in two different ways. And the first is our global settings, which is typically going to be your most restricted. So right now at the global level, I allow those single file elevations. I require an approval and a reason, and I don't allow anyone to request an admin session. Notification is who gets the email that there's a request. And then we have a global scope. So if you decide to use this, any user that you define here would be under management. Otherwise, they are not able to request elevation. And then under endpoint, this is where you can do all your branding. You can change the look and feel of the notifications. You can customize those code of conducts or turn them off. You can disable our desktop icon. And then for UAC, you have a couple different options of what users will get presented with. You can use confirm, authenticate, or you can also use your SSO system for MFA. And then for updating our client, we can either update a folder on the LAN or do an auto update over the internet. And you can always use your software deployment tool to push that out as well. A lockdown, this is one of the three scenarios that we do not revoke a user's privileges. That's if you exclude an account in here. We also give you a toggle where you can deny elevating system files, and you have the option of if you want everything that's running elevated to terminate when that timer on your session runs out or not. So if you have users that you're expecting to do complex installs that might span past that time, you might want to consider turning it off, but that is totally up to you. Then we have our device owner feature. So if you turn this on, we will assign an owner to a device, and then that user can only request elevation from their own device. And we also have an Intune compliancy requirement. So if you enable this, it requires that devices are Intune compliant, otherwise they're not able to request elevation. And then we have a partnership with OpSWAT, and we leverage their technology to scan any file that a user elevates. If we find a potentially malicious file, we'll put that request into quarantine. Otherwise, you can change it to permanently block as well. Under app control, this is where you can pre-approve applications. So let's take a look at one here. You can pre-approve a folder on the LAN. You could pre-approve a vendor if you wanted to. And when you're doing your application pre-approvals, you can use checksums or digital certificates. This is also where you have access to application blocking. And then we have some auto approval functionality. So you can use either machine learning for auto approvals, or you can use our AI engine that gives applications and vendors scores based on their popularity. We do have a list down here of some examples if you'd like to take a look at these. But the way that these tools work is if you enable any of them, you set your parameters in the portal, and then any request that comes in that meets those parameters will get auto approved for your users. As far as data is concerned, we're going to get username, phone, and email from your users. This is the information that goes into the requests that you're receiving. So you're always in full control of this, and you can toggle anything off that you'd like to. We also give you email templates for all your triggered events, which you can customize. And you can set up email ingestion to work with your ticketing system. We do have an integration with ServiceNow and Jira. If you'd like to leverage those integrations to connect up with your ticketing system. And we also have fully documented APIs in the portal here if you'd prefer to integrate with your ticketing system via API key. So now into the second way that we configure settings, which is our sub settings. And what we're doing here is we are customizing the behavior of the software based on your user's identity in Active Directory or in Entra ID. So I created my technicians subsetting, and I defined the scope of this subsetting as my user group technicians from Entra ID. And after you define the scope of the subsetting, then any of the settings I just took you through, you could overrule for this subsetting. So a good example is at the global level, I did not allow anyone to request an admin session. I do allow that here, requiring an approval and a reason, and I give them 30 minutes if approved. So next up, I'll show you an example of an audit log. So in your audit log, we'll give you user info, date, time, and duration. You can see everything that's spawned down below here. And then we have these action links, which can be really helpful. So let's say that I just approved a request for this Adobe executable, and now I want to pre-approve it for the rest of my users. I can click pre-approve this file, and we populate all the file information in, so you just have to hit save, and we'll add it to your pre-approval list. I will default to checksum, but as I mentioned earlier, we can flip that over to a digital certificate as well. We also have reporting. So most of our reports are related to things that have to do with elevations. We do have a Power BI integration if you'd like to view some reports in there. Otherwise, all this data is exportable to you via API key. And then we have our inventory. This will be all the machines that are running admin by request. So I'll open one up here. I will give you information on the hardware of that machine. You can see what software sits on this machine. We have machine-specific event logs and audit logs. And then we have our break glass account. So what this allows you to do is you can spin up a just-in-time admin account on a machine, and you can set your expiration. So let's just say 15 minutes. And then I can generate an account. Now I can go to this machine and log in with this admin account I just created, do whatever work I need to do, and then as soon as I log out, reboot the machine, or my expiration time runs out, we're going to remove this account off the machine. So that way, when you're done working on the machine, you don't have to leave an admin account sitting behind. And then the last thing I'll show everyone is our Trust Center. So we are hosted on Microsoft Azure with 2 tenants, US and Europe. We have primary, secondary, as well as cold storage in both locations. And then down below here is all of our security and compliance information for you to review if needed. So that's a run through of admin by request. Thank you for attending this demo.